They told you that nitrogen, the very fuel of life, must be bought in plastic sacks, synthesized in massive chemical plants using temperatures hot enough to melt lead. They lied. There is a biological engine that predates the Industrial Revolution by 50 million years, a microscopic titan that pulls pure nitrogen from the thin air and weaves it into the soil with an efficiency that makes the Haber-Bosch process look like a clumsy relic. I am talking about Azala, an organism capable of doubling its entire biomass every 72 hours. It is not a weed. It is a hyperaccumulator, a living atmospheric scrubber capable of sequestering carbon faster than a rainforest and fixing nitrogen superior to the most genetically modified soybean. Just 1 hectare of this green gold can produce over 1 ton of green manure in days, completely free of charge. Yet, walk into any modern supply store, and you will not find it. You will find blue crystals, expensive patents, and dependency. Why did we trade a self-replicating, autonomous, perpetual motion machine for a subscription to chemical corporations? The answer isn't just about efficiency. It is about control. I'm going to show you what they erased from the textbooks, starting with a forgotten manuscript from the 11th century that held the secret to feeding an empire without a single drop of oil. To understand the magnitude of what we have lost, we must travel back to the mist-covered rice paddies of 11th century Vietnam, specifically to the Red River Delta, where this biology was not treated as a crop, but as a deity. The legend speaks of a woman named Ba Hing, a figure who realized that rice fields populated by a specific, tiny floating fern yielded harvests that defied the natural limits of the soil. But this was not a benevolent discovery shared with the world. It was the first instance of agricultural intellectual property. For centuries, the cultivation of Azala was a fiercely guarded state secret, restricted to a handful of villages like Lavan and Bung. The knowledge was not open source. It was hermetically sealed within temple walls, where monks maintained the ancestral strain during the harsh winters, treating the vegetative matter with the reverence usually reserved for religious relics. They did not understand the chemistry, but they understood the leverage. Families who possessed the green seed survived famines that wiped out their neighbors. The secrecy was so absolute that it took nearly 300 years for the technique to be formally recorded in neighboring China. In 1313, the scholar Wang Zhen broke the silence in his Book of Agriculture, documenting the use of this water fertilizer that rotted into the mud and invigorated the stalks. These ancient cultivators were not praying for miracles. They were managing a sophisticated biological supply chain. They had unlocked a perpetual nitrogen cycle without a single pressure valve or gas pipeline. Yet today, we dismiss their wisdom as folklore. We traded their resilient, decentralized power for the fragility of the global supply chain, forgetting that the most advanced technology is often the one that has already been invented by nature itself. To understand why this plant is a threat to the fertilizer industry, you must stop looking at the fern and start looking inside it. If you were to slice a frond of Azala under a microscope, you would find a specialized dorsal cavity, a hermetically sealed biological bunker. Inside this cavity lives the true architect of this miracle, a cyanobacterium called Anabaina azoli. This is not a casual infection. It is a permanent, hereditary symbiosis that has existed for 80 million years. The fern provides a sugar-rich, low-oxygen environment, a luxury suite, and in return, the bacteria performs a feat of physics that we humans can only replicate with massive factories. The air you are breathing right now is 78% nitrogen, but it is useless to crops because the nitrogen atoms are locked together in a triple covalent bond. This bond is one of the strongest in nature, a molecular fortress that regular plants cannot breach. Industrial science smashes this fortress using 500 degrees Celsius and 200 atmospheres of pressure. But anabiena possesses a molecular key, the enzyme nitrogenase. Functioning like a precise subatomic scalpel, this enzyme severs the triple bond at ambient temperature, converting inert atmospheric gas into reactive ammonia. This is a biological cold fusion of agriculture. While the rice plant struggles to scavenge nutrients from the mud, the azolla floating above is literally pulling fertilizer out of thin air, pumping it directly into its tissues. You are not growing a plant. You are cultivating a floating nitrogen refinery that runs on sunlight and pays you in the currency of soil fertility. The death of agricultural independence has a specific date, 1913. This was the year Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch commercialized the process of synthesizing ammonia from nitrogen and hydrogen. It was a scientific triumph that won Nobel Prizes, but for the soil, it was a coup d'etat. Before this moment, nitrogen was a biological currency earned through the patience of cover crops and the stewardship of symbiosis like azolla. After 1913, it became a commodity sold in a bag. The industrial logic was seductive and undeniable. Why manage a living, breathing aquatic fern that requires water regulation and phosphorus management when you can simply scatter white granules of urea, 46-0-0, and watch the plants surge green overnight? We traded complexity for convenience. The green revolution that followed wasn't a revolution of biology. It was a revolution of petrochemistry. Farmers were taught to bypass the soil's natural digestive system, the microbes, the fungi, the azolla decay, and inject raw nutrients directly into the plant's veins. It was the agricultural equivalent of living on intravenous sugar drips instead of eating food. The immediate results were staggering, but the long-term cost was hidden in the soil structure. While azolla adds tons of organic biomass that acts as a sponge for water and a home for earthworms, synthetic nitrates acidify the ground and burn out the microbial life. We didn't just switch fertilizers. We switched from a solar-powered circular economy to a linear fossil fuel addiction. The corporations didn't just sell us a product. They sold us a crutch so comfortable that we forgot how to walk. Do not mistake this for nostalgia. This is hard data. The International Rice Research Institute, the Vatican of rice science, has confirmed what the monks knew a millennium ago. Their studies reveal that a robust crop of azolla can fix between 2 to 4 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare per day. Over a standard growing season, that accumulates to over 450 kilograms of biological nitrogen per hectare, equivalent to applying nearly a ton of commercial urea, but without the toxic runoff or soil acidification. And the validation is getting louder. Just last year, in 2025, extensive field trials in the Senegal River Valley shattered the skepticism of modern agronomists. They found that while chemical fertilizers provided a quick initial spike, the azolla-treated fields maintained fertility weeks longer, resulting in grain yields that were statistically identical or superior. But here is the kicker. Azolla is not just fertilizer. It is a shape-shifting resource. With a crude protein content of 20 to 30%, it is a premium livestock feed that rivals alfalfa. Ducks, pigs, and fish gorge on it, converting waste into meat. It is a carbon sink that sequesters CO2 with a ferocity that embarrasses most terrestrial plants. We are looking at a singular organism that solves 3 global crises: soil degradation, food security, and carbon emissions, simultaneously. The science is no longer a question mark. It is an exclamation point that industry lobbyists are desperately trying to erase. You are not just digging a hole. you are constructing a biological reactor. To initiate this reaction, you must first abandon the intuition of deep water reservoirs. Azolla is a surface dweller, a creature of the interface between water and sky. It demands a shallow stage, maintaining a water depth strictly between 5 to 10 centimeters. Any deeper, and you dilute the nutrients beyond the reach of the hanging roots. Any shallower, and the water heats up to lethal temperatures, cooking the protein structure of the fern. The water must be still, yet not stagnant. Wind is the enemy here, as it pushes the delicate fronds into piling heaps that rot and suffocate. So natural windbreaks or bunds are essential engineering requirements. Once the stage is set, you introduce the catalyst. Unlike corn or wheat, there is no seed in a packet. You need living biomass, the starter culture. You must inoculate your reactor with fresh azolla at a density of approximately 500 grams per square meter. But the organism will sit dormant, a green sludge doing nothing, unless you pull the trigger. Phosphorus. This is the non-negotiable ignition switch. While the anabaena symbiont pulls nitrogen from the air for free, it demands phosphorus as a transaction fee to power its enzymatic machinery. You must apply split doses of superphosphate or organic animal manure, roughly 1 to 2 kilograms of P2O5 per hectare every week. Without this input, the fern turns a sickly purple, and the nitrogen fixation halts immediately. You are building a battery. The water is the electrolyte, the sun is the charger, and phosphorus is the connector that allows the energy to flow. Once the reactor is critical, you face a new problem: exponential math. Azolla does not merely grow, it explodes. Under optimal conditions of 25 to 30 degrees Celsius, the biomass doubles every 72 hours. This is the rule of doubling that catches novices off guard. If you allow the mat to become too dense, exceeding 2 kilograms per square meter, the fern layers stack upon themselves. The lower layers are starved of light, die, and begin to rot, releasing sulfides that poison the entire colony. You must become a ruthless predator of your own crop. You are required to harvest at least 50% of the biomass every 5 to 7 days. If you miss a week, you don't just lose yield, you crash the system. But you are not the only one hungry for this protein. The scent of azolla is a dinner bell for the larvae of Nymphala and various aquatic snails. They can strip a pond white in 2 nights. Here is where you must resist the industrial reflex. Do not spray synthetic pesticides like carbofuran. You will kill the anabaena bacteria instantly, destroying the nitrogen engine. Instead, use nature's own chemical warfare, neem. A solution of neem oil or applying neem cake acts as a potent biological deterrent that creates a barrier against pests without severing the delicate symbiotic bond you have nurtured. This is active management, not passive gardening. Harvesting is not merely a collection, it is a transfer of energy. You have captured the nitrogen from the sky, but now you must unlock it for the roots. Do not pile azolla on the banks to dry in the sun. That is an act of waste. UV radiation and heat will volatilize the ammonia, sending your hard-earned nitrogen back into the atmosphere as gas. You must perform the incorporation. This is the physical act of trampling the green mat directly into the anaerobic mud. In rice paddies, this means draining the water to a saturated level and using a rotary weeder or your own feet to press the fern under the surface. You are burying the treasure. This is where the physics of decomposition takes over. Unlike rice straw or wheat chaff, which have high carbon-to-nitrogen ratios of 80 to 1 that lock up soil nutrients, azolla possesses a C to N ratio between 10 to 1 and 12 to 1. This is the golden ratio of mineralization. Because the carbon structure is so weak and the nitrogen content so high, soil microbes devour it instantly. Within 7 to 10 days of incorporation, 80% of the nitrogen is released as ammonium, becoming immediately bioavailable. If you time this incorporation to coincide with the critical tillering stage of your crop, you are essentially giving the plant a precise, high-dosage injection of protein exactly when its metabolic engine demands it. You are not waiting months for compost. You are seeing results in real time. We stand at a definitive crossroads. On one side lies the seductive, convenient path of industrial agriculture. A path paved with blue crystals, patented seeds, and a soil addiction that demands ever-increasing doses to maintain the status quo. It is a system explicitly designed to make you a consumer first and a cultivator second. On the other side lies the path of Azola, the path of the biological insurgent. It is messy, it requires knowledge, and it demands that you pay attention to the subtle rhythms of wind and water. But it offers something that no bag of fertilizer can ever provide: sovereignty. When you cultivate this fern, you are not just growing nitrogen, you are growing your independence. You are stepping out of a supply chain that stretches across oceans and into a cycle that happens right in your backyard. The science is irrefutable. The history is validated. The blueprint is now in your hands. The question is no longer, does it work? The question is, do you have the courage to walk away from the counter and look into the pond? The revolution will not be televised. It will be grown.